about it, if you have Thomas, Bertans, and CJ Miles coming off the bench, like those are some nice offensive weapons that can shoot. And we still got Jordan McRae. So I think him coming off the bench would be more ideal. I think for the time being, he's probably still going to start. We have a game tomorrow against the Cavaliers. And then the following week, we're heading to Boston. And so we'll see the direction that Coach Brooks wants to take it in. I think Coach Brooks is very unsure of his rotations. I think he's unsure of his starting five. You know, Beal, Rui, and Thomas Bryant are a lock. Those three are not going to move out the starting five. But in terms of the 1 and the 3, I think he's very unsure on what to do. He's had Isaac Bonga starting at the 3, who's super young. And I'll say another reason why Harden dropped 59 points is because for a good portion of the game, Bonga was guarding Harden. And that was a mismatch all night long. And so those are the things you have to look at. And you're like, man, is this like, is that, what are you doing right there? Do you really think that's the smartest play? So I think they need to get back to the drawing board. Personally, I want Isaiah Thomas to come off the bench. I think he's a better option coming off the bench. And we should start Ish. And now that Troy Brown is back and healthy, I think Troy Brown needs to get in that starting lineup to be our starting 3. And the starting lineup should be Ish, Beal, Troy Brown, Roy, and Bryant. That should be our starting 5. And then you can have McRae, Thomas, Bertans, Wagner, and anybody else, Anderson or Robinson, come off the bench. And we go forward from there. So, anyways, let's talk a little bit about this defense, man. Let's talk a little bit about the defense, because defense is killing me. I'm not gonna lie, the defense is killing me. Watching last night's game, I'm like, oh man, defense is killing me. So something else I said in the Wizards season preview was, what would it take for the Wizards to surprise the NBA? To surprise everybody, because they had us, and they probably still have us as one of the worst teams in the NBA. I'm talking about like bottom 5, right? And I'm like, man, that's kind of disrespectful. We put up 158 points against the Rockets, and Rockets are supposed to be competing for a championship, right? We only lost by 2 to the Spurs, and Spurs, as long as we've known it, have always been a dominant team in the West. So, what would it take for the Wizards to surprise the NBA? Not just players and teams around the NBA, but also the national media around the NBA. And I said, they gotta play better defensively. They have to play better defensively. Right now, the Wizards are 27th in the league in overall defense. 27th. And so now you look back at some of these games and you're like, all right, well, that 2-5 record kind of makes sense. So what is it going to take? What is it going to take for them to play better defensively? They cannot. When you watch the games, it's like they just don't have the defensive awareness. But at the same time, I don't even think that's necessarily it. I think they do have the defensive awareness, but it's just like they don't have a leader on defense. There isn't that one guy who's the anchor on defense. And I know Thomas Bryant has come out and said that he wants to be a better defensive player, a better rim protector, and not necessarily accumulate blocks, but just be able to force people to have to adjust, right? Adjust their shots mid-air or on layups. And he's done a pretty good job at that, and so has Mo Wagner, but it's still not enough, because on defense, to be a defensive anchor, you got to be loud. I mean, look at Draymond Green. He's not the biggest guy in the NBA, but he is a solid defender. And when the Warriors were going on their championship runs, he was the anchor on defense. He was the one that kept everybody on a string, pointing people out, giving directions, communicating. And I think that's what's missing on this Wizards team. Everybody's so focused on scoring and trying to get theirs that there's nobody on the defensive end that is kind of holding everybody else accountable to do their part. There's so many times when I see some guy on the other team, doesn't matter who we're playing, wide open on the corner for a 3. Or wide open and pretty much anywhere on the perimeter for a three, and we just kind of sit in the paint and wait for that shot to go up, hoping that he misses, and then we're gonna fight for the rebound. Getting defensive rebounds is not the only part of defense. You got to be able to close out on shooters. You guys have to communicate, right? They got to communicate. And I think we're missing that. We're missing one guy on the team to really be the defensive anchor to lead the way for the rest of the team. You can put that on the players. You can put it on Brooks. His defensive strategies haven't necessarily worked because they've tried to switch it up between zone and man. It's still not working. I also, like I said, I don't think starting Bonga at the 3 has been good for us because he's not a lockdown defender. He's actually giving up a lot of points against opponents, and he's not scoring enough on the other end. And, now we're sitting at 2 and 5. I think he should have picked up on that a little bit earlier. Given the fact that Troy Brown has been hurt, I understand, and we were kind of depleted because CJ Miles was also hurt. But now we got both of those guys back, and now it's kind of like it's time to make adjustments. And we got to lock in. We got to lock in defensively. There's no way we're going to be able to compete in this high-scoring NBA league if we're 27th in the league on defense. There is no way. We're not winning games because we're not going to put up 150-plus points every night. We're not going to put up 120-plus points every night. So it starts on defense. I mean, look, what does everybody always say? Defense wins championships. The Lakers, right? As much as people want to talk about how the Lakers, they got LeBron, they got Anthony Davis, and those two are two dominant players, and Dwight Howard. Oh man, the fact that Dwight Howard is playing good this year and didn't even play for us last year blows me. But regardless, even with all that, with those guys being as good as they are on offense, the reason why the Lakers are sitting on top of the West right now is because they're the number 1 team in the league in defense right now. They are the number 1 rated team in the league in defense. So, you got to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, what do I got to do? Not just to make myself better, but to make my team better, to make my teammates better. How can I make my teammates better? Somebody needs to start speaking up on defense. They got to. Somebody needs to take that role and be the defensive anchor that we need, because we cannot be sitting bottom 5 in the league. Like, that is depressing. We cannot do that. We got a little bit of I don't want to say a tough schedule or a tough couple games ahead of us, because it's not too tough. But we do have an opportunity to win tomorrow, Friday. We're playing in D.C. We're hosting the Cavaliers. Cavaliers are a weak team. We're not looking too strong right now either. But I always say we still got Beal. And a lot of the times, even like last night when we were playing against the Pacers, I felt like Beal's the best player on the floor. And so, we kind of have to ride his coat, right? Like, he's the best player on the floor. We need him to go off. We need him to have a big night. And when he does, everybody else seems to play a little bit better. So hopefully he has a good game tomorrow, and we can steal a win from Cleveland. And then next week we're taking a little road trip next week. We go to Boston first on Wednesday. Boston is always a tough environment. Boston's been playing really good, so we definitely have to show out over there. And if we don't play defense versus Boston, we're gonna get lit up, straight up. They're gonna light us up, because Boston always plays really good. They're kind of like another one of those teams like San Antonio. They play really good at home. So we got Boston next Wednesday. We got a little revenge game against the Timberwolves next Friday. We're playing in Minnesota. That'd be a nice little game to bounce back from after that whooping they gave us on this past Saturday. And then on then on Sunday, we're going to Orlando to play the Magic. And I believe we have not played the Magic yet this season. No, we have not. We have not played the Magic yet this season. That'll be our first division game this year. And, just a little bit. So I was also talking about how we struggled against teams in the West. We're sitting at 2 and 5, and 4 of those losses that we got came from teams from the West. So I don't know if that necessarily plays into our losses, but it's interesting to look at. It's like why we struggle so much against. You have to ask yourself why we struggle so much against teams against the West or from the West. And now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, man. We got 5 losses and 4 of these came from teams from the West. Interesting, right? Just a little bit interesting. Anyways, so we're 12th in the East right now, 4th in our division, just ahead of the Magic. And the main focus has got to be defense. I'm gonna keep saying until people's ears fall off, but it's the truth, right? Because we're not gonna survive in this league. We're gonna be a bottom team, bottom five team, and not just in defense, but in just overall record. We're gonna be a bottom five team in the league if we don't start playing defense. I mean, let's get it together. Get it together, fellas. We have we can do so much on offense, and that's great, but we can't allow teams to score on us, to go off on us. We can't allow players from opposing benches go off on us. Doug McDermott with his 19 yesterday was killing me. He was killing me. I could not believe he was shooting like that. I know he's a good shooter, but man, come on. We can't let that happen. We cannot let that happen. So, DC Family Whiz Kids, on to the next one. We got a game this Friday. Spirits are a little bit low because we were looking rough last night, but that's all right. That's all right. It's a long season. We're 2-5 right now. We win tomorrow. We're 3-5. No big deal. We win against the Celtics, 4-5. There's plenty of room and opportunity for us to bounce back, but we got to take advantage of it. Because if you don't, then it could be a long, grueling season. And we're going to be sitting here, beating our heads against the table, against the floor, against the wall, whatever you want to beat your head against. It's just something to create some type of amnesia to forget the game from last night, the game from before, right? But they got to make adjustments. And I want to see what Coach Brooks is going to do. For me, outside of the players, because the players are going to try to play as hard as they can no matter what. But at the end of the day, if things aren't clicking, then you got to start looking at the coach. You can only make so many adjustments on the team and sign so many players and do this and that before you start looking at the coach and just like, maybe his system just isn't working. Maybe this isn't the guy. And I've been put Coach Brooks on the hot seat. So we'll see what he does. Tomorrow's a good opportunity for him and the team to bounce back and get a win. Lift some spirits for everybody in the DC area. And then we're going to have a very interesting game against the Celtics. I think that will be another one of those games where it's like, all right, let's see where we're really at. Because if we get blown out the park, then it's like, oof. Or blown out the gym, I should say. It's like, ugh. Especially to the Celtics. I'm not a Celtics fan. If you're a Wizards fan, I don't know how you could be a Celtics fan. I was even hesitant when we signed Isaiah Thomas. I was like, dang. That ex-Celtics guy? All right, I'll accept that. I guess he's on our team now. But still, there's a little bit of animosity that sits inside of me. Anyways, DC Family Whiz Kids, I'm out of here. Thank you for listening to another podcast. Don't forget to check out nutsandboltsports.com for anything sports related. Great articles, great podcasts, great segments. And if you want to hit me up, you can always find me on Twitter, DMVWizKid, and on Instagram, DMVWizKid. I'm checking out. Till next week, I'll see you later.